From the studios of Staten Island Community Television, you're watching In the Bleachers, the TV show for the world's most passionate sports fans. Excuse me. Hello, everyone. I'm Jaime Hixson, joined by my dear friend over the phone.
Hey, this is the hottest, baddest, sexiest man on cable access TV, the man of the hour, or with the power. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. You're truly the ladies' man of all ladies' men on cable access TV. This is I, Hector Bosa. That's right, it is me.
Is there something wrong with your phone? Because I keep hearing beeps.
Beeps?
Yeah.
That's probably women trying to call me.
No, that's not it. I think you're just fidgeting with your phone.
That's probably women trying to call me.
No, it's not.
I mean, women can call me, you know.
They choose
Good
not
Lord,
to.
Man. Stop being so jealous and say yes for a change.
No.
And not you. You always got to go as if listen, I am a man's man, and women call me because they need my services.
No, women don't call you.
Okay, so that's it.
They want nothing to do with you.
It's not my fault they don't call you for no services.
Excuse me, I keep telling you that I'm already accounted for.
That's all. They call me for services. That's all. They know that when they pay, they get the right service, so that's it. That's all. Stop being so jealous and let's talk with sports, okay?
I ain't
Good
jealous
Lord,
of
man.
you,
You always
you
gotta talk about
knucklehead.
this. Why do you do this to yourself?
Why do you do this to
you're gonna
yourself?
get aggravated. Well, why
Let's just
do you
get to the task at hand, please.
Why do you do this? Because I'm telling you the truth. Well, why? Are you that jealous?
Why are you always spreading lies about
There's
yourself?
no lies here.
Do you know
I'm
how
sure all my
pathetic
fans
that
would
makes you
agree
look?
That the man himself can do it all.
No, you can't
That's
do it all.
right. So there, you know.
You ain't God.
So let's talk about something more up your alley because you know nothing about women. So let's try something. March Madness.
I don't claim to know everything about women because I don't toot my own horn the way you do.
What happened to the team that got a pass because the other team had COVID? Or they were going through COVID precautions.
You're talking about Virginia Commonwealth. Unfortunately, there were 4 players on VCU that were tested positive for COVID, so they had to declare their game with Oregon a no contest.
Now, has that happened before? Not with COVID, but has there been any teams that have gone and have been in no contest?
Nope.
Or was this the first time?
This is the first time it's happened.
Now, do you think it's right that it's happened? Or they would if they tested the other players too? Well, it doesn't matter because they would have.
Well,
to stay
everyone
10
is
days.
going through COVID protocol, so everyone has to get tested.
Right.
So they were simply following protocol there. I didn't think that it was fair that they had to do a no contest. I think they should have probably put the guys on the sideline. But they were just following safety precautions.
Well, they had to do it because they didn't know who had it and who didn't. That was the thing too, you know. Just because you don't test positive, that doesn't mean that you're not a carrier.
Mm-hmm.
At any time, you can be a carrier. You just don't know it. But I was just curious. Now that team has gone by. I'm sure you've seen March Madness so far. How have you liked the games?
I've seen the majority of the games. As a matter of fact, there's a game on right now, Abilene Christian and UCLA, and it's looking more and more like UCLA is gonna end ACU's dreams of a Sweet 16 appearance.
That's a shame.
Yep.
They were a dream team. They were a sleeper team.
And for the record, it's 60-39 with 4 minutes left.
Were they a sleeper team? They wasn't
Abilene
supposed to
Christian
make it.
was probably the biggest sleeper team that you could think of right now. No one saw them beating Texas in that first round.
Wow. At least they can say they made it that far.
Mm-hmm.
Did they have a chance of winning?
Not anymore.
No. That's a shame, though. That's a shame.
Yep.
Now, let me ask you this. Right now, who's a sleeper so far besides that team that's not going to make it?
Or that's an easy one. It's Oral Roberts. Oral Roberts University from Tulsa. They've made it with three-point shooting and with really good defense. And now Oral Roberts is going to be going into the Sweet 16. I'm checking the schedule here. Here we are.
Who's the favorite?
Gonzaga. They're undefeated.
Gonzaga.
Yeah, they're undefeated.
It's normally Gonzaga or UConn.
Mm-hmm. UConn got knocked out of the first round.
Basketball team. They normally the top three, right?
Yeah.
Gonzaga, UConn, and who's the number three normally?
It's Gonzaga, it's UConn, and also Baylor.
Yeah, they normally make it. They're normally up there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, who's the first time? Who's the first college team that this is the first time they're playing, or broke the top 10 so far, or the top?
Exactly. What do you mean?
Well, you know how there are surprise teams that you didn't think that they were going to make it. How many colleges have gone up to, like, say, the top five? Now, you thought they were never going to make the top five, but they actually made it. Has there any college been that way? Because I know there's one or two colleges that have been that way. They didn't think the college was going to make nothing of it, and then they wound up being a number 5th seed, and so on.
Aside from Gonzaga and Baylor, Villanova maybe?
Yeah, Villanova's normally up there, but after last year too. Did they fire Chris Mullen?
Chris Mullen actually decided to step down after 2019, and then Mike Anderson, a veteran head coach who's been over at Arkansas and also at Alabama, Birmingham. He took over, and he's actually done pretty well for himself coaching the Red Storm. This past season, he led them to 16 wins.
Do they have now? Who's the best player in college right now?
The best player in college? It's a choice between Luka Garza, who's from Iowa, and Cade Cunningham, who's from Oklahoma State.
And I'm sure they're guards or forwards, correct?
Garza is about 6'10 or 6'11. He's got a big, strong body. And he can shoot the three. He's a pretty decent perimeter player. He can also bang inside with a lot of the big men.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Cade Cunningham, who a lot of people are picking to be the first overall pick of the draft. He's a guy who runs the floor really well, decent passer, good shooter from outside as well.
Any other guys that have impressed you?
Probably the kid from Villanova. Unfortunately, his name escapes me, but
that's okay.
Yeah,
that's okay. It'll come to you because with them having one of the shortest seasons in the world because of COVID virus, it's going to be hard, I guess, for the NBA people to find out who the best player is and how they're going to judge him because there aren't that many. They haven't played that many games.
Yeah.
And, just because you break out in March, that doesn't mean that you're going to be the star. Because as you well know, how many people have played great in March have done nothing in the NBA?
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you think they're going to judge the NBA play? The NBA scouts are going to judge these guys now.
Well, they're going to go at it the same way that they have for many years. They're just going to look at the games. They're going to dissect every single piece of their game, and they're going to report back to their bosses.
Now, do you think that they, what they do, how high they jump and all that, that counts for something, and how long they are?
Jumping ability counts for a lot. If there's somebody with a 40-inch vertical leap, then that means they could really go high for a rebound or a block shot.
Because they do that in football.
They do the same thing in football.
Yeah, they do those in camps where they judge you by speed, they judge you how high you can jump and all that. They do that in basketball too.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering.
They have a scouting combine.
Yeah. Does that count for anything? Considering, again, you can do well in the combine, but that doesn't mean that you'll be good. That just means that, hey, this is your stats. This is what you can do at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because, again, how many people have done well in the combine but done nothing? Think about it.
Quite
a
few.
Couple of people that have done well in the combine, but they've done nothing.
Yep.
But I'm glad sports is back, especially for the high school kids, too, that are going to get scouted.
Yeah.
That's another thing, too.
Mm-hmm.
How are the college kids, how a college is going to scout anybody if the high school haven't played any games? That's going to be hard for them.
Yeah.
But it had to be done. It had to be done. So how do you think they're going to handle it now? They're going to go by what they did the year before, you think?
Probably.
And they're going to probably bring them in and see how they do in practice, if they're allowed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's hard. It's hard because there's a lot of kids out there that are trying very hard to get a good college education, even though the majority of the time they want to spend a year or two and just get the money as quick as possible, which is probably the safest thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Get the money as quick as possible, and then after that, if you're a smart guy, you can either take it while you're playing basketball, take some college courses while you're playing the NBA, or take it afterwards. That way you can fall back on something, because you always fall back on something. Or some of these guys have invested well. But
mm-hmm.
Speaking of basketball, we lost somebody.
Yeah, Elgin Baylor passed away.
Tell the history about him, Jamie.
Elgin Baylor was a kid who came out of Seattle University, took them to the national championship game in 1958 before they wound up losing to Kentucky. And then he got drafted by the Lakers in 1958, and he wound up spending, I think, 14 or 15 seasons in the NBA. He was a 6'8" forward who averaged around 17 points and 10 rebounds a game for his career, and he made the Hall of Fame in 1977. And our generation probably know him best for being the general manager of the Clippers. And in those days, when he was the boss of the Clippers, that was when Donald Sterling was the owner. And those days, let me tell you, were some of the most lean of years that the Clippers had. They had their share of players. I mean, they had Danny Manning and Tom Chambers and Terry Cummings also. But they just didn't seem to put it together, and because of that, they were either traded away or just released, or they wound up getting hurt. But
well, I can say this much: Danny Manning never really did anything.
That's because he wound up blowing out his knee, I think once or twice when he was a Clipper. Things actually improved for him when he went over to the Phoenix Suns. He improved his game there. But if he hadn't blown out his knee, he probably would have been one of the 10 best players of the NBA in his time. But unfortunately, those are the breaks. But as far as Elgin Baylor was concerned, he was described as a gentleman and a really classy guy who was very, very well liked by teammates and people around the NBA circle. He passed away at 86 earlier today, and he's survived by his wife and their daughter.
Yeah, that is a shame.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's a shame. Going back to the March Madness.
Right.
Right now, are the teams that are supposed to be there are there?
Not really. I mean, 5 high seeds wound up losing in the first round. And so far, it's looking more and more like Abilene Christian is going to lose. The game is now in the... Let's see here.
So you would say there have been more surprises.
Yeah, there have been some major surprises. I mean, there's been Abilene. There's Oral Roberts, like I mentioned. UCLA won. Syracuse. The only thing that resembles a local story here in the New York area. Syracuse was a lower seed, and they wound up going to the Sweet 16. Oregon wound up winning over Iowa, so Oregon's going to be in the Sweet 16. And it's officially a final. UCLA beats Abilene Christian 67-47.
So the dream has ended so far.
Yep.
So when do they find out for sure? In 1 week or so on, do they decide that they find out the Sweet 16?
After tonight.
After tonight, they find out for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So who's in it so far that do you think has a really good shot at winning, and another dreamer
Speaking
or someone that you didn't think was going to win it, like this team?
Speaking of dreamer, one team that we did not mention that has been another fine story is Loyola of Chicago. They made the Final Four in 2018, and they're back once again with Sister Jean, who's been basically their good luck charm. She's 102 years old.
Oh, damn.
102-year-old.
Oh, yeah, I remember her. Yeah.
102-year-old nun, and she prays with the team before every single game. And some people think that her prayers are also like a thing of strategy that she discusses with the team as well. So let's see what Loyola can do in the next game. If I'm not mistaken, it's Saturday. Loyola has Oregon State, right, which is another story to be told here. Oregon State, which made the tournament only because they won the Pac-12 tournament. Oregon State has been doing it with 3-point shooting and with transition play. So it's looking more and more like Oregon State and Loyola of Chicago are going to have a real barn burner here.
Has there been someone that wasn't supposed to make it, but they made it to the? They were the NCAA champions.
One team that was supposed to make it, but they wound up being NCAA champions? No, that wasn't supposed
to make it, but they made it. They went to a dream team that wasn't supposed to make it.
The last team that I could think of was probably Villanova, but that was 1985.
No, they weren't supposed to make it.
They weren't supposed to make it. I remember vividly they lost in the Big East semifinals, and they basically just got in at the very last second. And then they went on this ridiculous run. The Georgetown game was crazy. They shot 78% from the field in the second half to beat that Georgetown team that had Patrick Ewing.
Yeah, those games were good. I mean, I miss those games. There's not any. I mean, unless I haven't seen that many games like that, but before it seemed that you had real games. Now you don't really have any games. There's no zest to them.
Mostly because you have these higher seeds going up against lower seeds, and they turn into blowouts in the beginning.
Yeah, but you still had names. Because back then, again, you had Patrick Ewing, Hakeem Olajuwon.
Mm-hmm.
You had a lot of names.
Yeah.
And, I mean, when Georgetown played St. John's, forget it. With Chris Mullin?
There were Hall of Famers on the court.
Yeah, they forget about it. I mean, wow, that was like watching an NBA playoff, the way those guys were playing, and the team itself.
Mm-hmm.
It was incredible, and even a college person that didn't know anything about them knew about, Patrick Ewing and them other guys.
Yeah.
I mean, your average a person that follows college would know it, but the person that just doesn't follow college, they even knew who Patrick Ewing was. They even knew who Chris Mullin was. They knew who Hakeem Olajuwon was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how come there's no break. I mean, is it because there's so much media out there now, or is it the fact that the players aren't that great anymore? They're just,
Well, this generation is a lot more athletic. And keep in mind, we didn't have social media back in the era of Patrick and Chris. So we had to rely on newspapers to try and follow everything, and also TV. But this generation not only is a lot more athletic, they're a lot more strong. They're reliant on the three-point shot a little bit more. And I don't think they're as polished defensively as they were back in the day when Patrick and Chris were roaming the court.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's the coaches. I don't know anymore. I mean, the coaches are something. Because, hell, I mean, there's one team that may even want Mike Whitson as head coach.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear that rumor?
Mike Whitson as a college coach?
Yeah.
It
was him and Mike Whitson, and I'm going, damn, he just got on the Knicks team. But everybody wants to be a head coach. Nobody really wants to be an assistant coach. I don't blame them. But Mike Whitson...
I think I know what's going on here. Rumor has it that Mike Woodson is a candidate for the job at his alma mater, Indiana University.
Yeah. It's him and someone else they were interviewing.
That would make a lot of sense. I mean, Woodson's not necessarily a great coach, but he's a good teacher. I think he would make a good teacher for these kids.
One year. And everybody seems to want him. If you notice, he's never out really of a job.
Mm-hmm.
You ever notice that when he gets let go, somebody always picks him up?
Yeah.
So maybe you're right. Maybe he's a better teacher than he is a head coach, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But now, what do you think of him? What would you think of him as a head coach in college?
We're just going to have to wait and see because he's never been that route since he's graduated. So we're just going to have to wait and see exactly what the guy can do with this.
Do you think it's a hard transition from going to college?
What's that?
Do you think it's a hard transition? Should I say, what's harder of a transition? An NBA coach going to college or a college coach going to the NBA?
An NBA coach going to college, by far.
Now,
I mean,
why would
not
you
only
say
do
that?
they have to work 20 hours a day in the NBA, having to do meetings and practices and talking to the media and looking at video. In the college ranks, he's only allowed to do maybe 3 or 4 hours out of the day. I mean, all he's allowed to do is run practices and talk to the media. And then there's also recruiting. Recruiting is, let me tell you, recruiting is a very, very different animal as opposed to meeting with guys at a table and trying to negotiate a contract. Because you have to try and deal not just with the athlete themselves, but you have to also deal with their parents. And the parents can be very, very persuasive when it comes to trying to deal with their kids and where they have to go to school.
Or the booster people or the people that pay them off.
Boosters are the worst. They always got to stick their nose where they don't belong. And as always, there's got to be some money involved.
Yeah, that's true. You know, and also the people that, the people that try to get their kids in, that pay some of these high school ball players or college ball players to get special treatment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it does happen whether you like to hear it or not, but it does happen. And it's hard because then at least you can teach these guys. That's one thing that you can do in college that you really can't do in the pros very much.
Yeah.
Because at least they're willing to learn. They're somewhat willing to learn in college. And in the pros, I don't know. You have to be more of a psychologist more than. What do you think of that? Is it true that you have to be more of a psychologist than an actual coach?
Sometimes you do have to be play the role of the psychologist because these kids are going through a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, they're going through classes and practice and having to deal with friends and families and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah. But so you would say that being a head coach, transitioning to college coach is harder.
Yeah, it's a lot harder.
Wow, and I thought it would be the other way around. I think it would be harder for a college coach to be in the NBA because look at the Shark, Titanium.
Oh, Jerry Tarkanian had it really bad in San Antonio.
Yeah,
he was like a fish out of water.
Yeah, and there was and he was the best college coach and one of the best college coaches in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And he couldn't do a damn thing.
Nope.
And
but then you have guys like Billy Donovan, who had it great at the University of Florida, and then decides to take that one shot in the NBA. So he goes over to Oklahoma City, does great, Now he's with the Chicago Bulls and is working his tail off trying to make that team better. He's the one guy that I know of who's been able to make a really good transition from college basketball to the NBA.
I don't think there've been that many. I don't think there've been that many that have transitioned very well. I mean, I know of college basketball players. I mean, college head coaches that have gone up and down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like what's his name, Brown? Oh, I forgot the guy's name. He even coached the Knicks at one time.
You mean Hubie Brown?
Yeah, Hubie Brown was one guy that went up and down. The guy with the glasses, I forgot his name too. He also coached for the Knicks. He also was a coach for the Knicks. I forgot his name, but
are you talking about Kurt Rambis?
Rambis? No, he didn't. He didn't coach for college, did he?
No, he didn't.
No, I'm talking about he coached for the Knicks. Oh well, that's right. Rambis was a substitute for coaching for the Knicks. Mm-hmm. He really didn't coach. He wasn't really a head coach, but they were head coaches. I forgot Hubie Brown, and Hubie Brown had curly hair.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the other one that had thin hair and he was short and he went up and down too, and he won basketball games. He won a lot of championships as well. But all in all, I think there's been more head coaches that have gone to college than college that has gone up, because look at Rick Pitino. Rick Pitino did well in both, but he hasn't coached ever since that scandal.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't really done anything with that scandal lately. But hey, did you know that the Knicks have one of the best defenses in the league? They're number one.
Yeah, but how long is that going to last? And does it really? Can we really take that at face value?
Yeah,
I mean,
because they're finally doing something right. This is the New York Knicks. The only time they play defense is when in the 80s. That's the only time you heard of them playing defense. Now they finally got the defense down pat because of Tom Thibodeau, if you want to. And they got players that can actually play defense. Now, can you believe that? They're number one. I would have never have believed that the New York Knicks can say they're number one in defense. Can you believe it?
No, I can't.
Why not? It says it in the newspapers.
Because it's the Knicks, that's why.
Hey, listen. Finally, they're number one. They lost horribly last night, by the way.
Yeah.
And
by a point to the Sixers.
And was it a false call? Or was this guy just complaining? Was he whining?
Well, I didn't even see the game, so I couldn't even begin to tell you.
Oh, Jesus, Jamie, you gotta watch the New York Knicks. How can you talk about the greatest team that ever lived?
They're not the greatest team that ever lived.
Oh, of course they are.
No,
they're
they are
make
not.
The playoffs. They're gonna go all the way.
The greatest team that ever lived was the 95-96 Chicago Bulls.
Oh, they're nothing compared to these New York Knicks.
Excuse me, they won 6 titles in the 90s, for crying out loud.
Don't worry. You're gonna see.
I'm going to see a team fall flat on their faces.
You're
what I'm going to
gonna
see.
see how greatness is going to come along. You're going to see how greatness is going to come, and they're going to fly.
You want
like
to talk
the
about
Eagles
greatness? Talk about the Utah Jazz, because they're the team with the best record in the league. That's what counts.
You know, now, you know, and you're hearing a lot of talk about Lonzo Ball, Victor Oladipo there, Mark Aldridge.
Yeah, I've heard their names.
The whatchamacallit, the basketball player, whatchamacallit, the center for the Cavaliers that hasn't played it, that stopped playing.
Yeah, you're mentioning, I guess, Andre Drummond.
Yeah, and there's other. I mean, let me ask you: do you think the Knicks are going to make a big pull, or are they just going to make a small, if any?
At this rate, this is anybody's guess as far as what they're going to do. Let me see. I'm trying to figure out what the NBA trading deadline is.
It's the 25th. It's March 25th.
Ah, then that would be this coming Thursday.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, if you go for Victor Oladipo, if you go for him, you know if he wants to stay. They may be asking for a lot for him as well. And do you give up, let's say, 4 players for this one guy, and then he'll jump ship and go somewhere else?
Wait, 4 players for which guy?
Victor
Oladipo?
Yeah, Oladipo, yeah, because it'll probably be 2, let's say Kevin Knox and Frank Ntilikina, and a number 1 draft choice, or 2 number 1 draft choices for him, even though he's leaving next year.
Well,
and Lonzo Ball, another guy, he's leaving next year too.
Yeah.
You know, do you want to do all that and then go, all right, well, we may make the playoffs this year, but we're giving up 4 guys for this one guy who may not even stay. So what do you think? You know, the Nuggets did a fair amount of research on Aaron Gordon.
Yeah, Aaron Gordon wants out of Orlando.
Do you know why? Is it because they're not going to make the playoffs, or is he having problems?
It's because the Magic are a quasi playoff team.
And Nuggets offering Greg Harris in deals ahead of deadline. I thought, I mean, what's going on? I mean, even the Lakers.
The Lakers, I can understand. They want to make a deal so they can satisfy their roster enough to try and contend for another championship.
Yeah, but they're willing to give up what's his name? Montrezl Harrell?
Montrezl Harrell?
Yeah.
Montrezl Harrell is a good ball player. Let me tell you, he's a really tough, gritty defender who can also get a couple of points down low. So if I'm the Lakers, I would think twice about trading Harrell away.
It all depends who they're gonna get back at this point in time. You know, the Marcus Aldridge landing spot would probably be the Heat, the Miami Heat, maybe.
Mm-hmm. I think that would be a team that that LaMarcus Aldridge would be able to resuscitate his career a little bit, because it's been a little dead in San Antonio right now.
Yeah, and the Knicks don't want him, or they really don't want him because what's his name plays the same position. The power forward that we have, I forgot his name now.
You mean Julius Randle?
Yeah. And they both want to start. Nobody's going to want to come off the bench. Now, if he wanted to come off the bench, then it's a different story. But this guy don't want to come off the bench. He wants to be a starter. And I'm sure he'll start in Orlando. LaMarcus Aldridge. I'm sure he'll start in Orlando. So, and, the Hawks reluctant to deal Collins.
Yeah, John Collins. John Collins has been involved in trade rumors for a while. I'm not really sure why they would want to give up the guy, though. I mean, he's a really good player.
Collins?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Aaron Gordon, I guess, requested trade. And, Golden State, they're eyeing a guard from the Hawks. Doesn't say no name. Oh, Bogdan.
Bogdanovich, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think he'd fit in well?
He would fit in very well. A stretch four who can really keep the defense honest.
And you have the Warriors listening to Uber. That's how you pronounce his name? Oubre. Uber.
You mean Kelly Oubre?
Yeah, Oubre, yeah. The Warriors are listening to offers for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Heat could deal Iguodala.
That's interesting.
I don't know.
Especially considering that he helped the Heat get to the finals last year.
What do you think Lonzo Ball is going to go?
He's leaving New Orleans. It's not a matter of if he's leaving. It's a matter of when.
Do you think he's going to be traded?
I think it's 50-50 at this point.
Do you think Victor Oladipo is going? He's going to be traded?
Yes.
What team do you think he's going to land in?
What team will he land in? Dare I say that he probably goes to the Lakers?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that he would be just the kind of guard that the Lakers would look for in keeping the pressure off of LeBron and Anthony Davis.
But who would the Lakers have to give up besides that dude that we just mentioned? I mean, the Houston wants a lot of players because they're breaking down that team. The only person I feel bad for is John Wall.
Yeah.
Because, he went from one bad team to another bad rotten team.
Mm-hmm.
And you're breaking down that team. You might as well trade John Wall too. But his contract is so huge.
Yep.
Nobody's going to want it.
And there's still time on that contract too.
I think there's 2 more years left?
Yeah.
2 or 3 more years. That's a huge contract. That's a big-ass contract. But all in all, so you think Victor will go to the Lakers?
I think there's a slim chance he does go to the Lakers because he could probably give them enough scoring that the Lakers would be able to take pressure off of Anthony Davis and LeBron playing all those minutes.
I think the best team that he can probably go to would probably be the team that he wants to go to is Orlando because he lives there. But do they have the players to give up for him? That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the Knicks. The Knicks want him badly, but do the Knicks have... I mean, they have the money and they have the draft choices, and they do have some players. It all depends because they got Austin Rivers, who they don't want to use. Tom Thibodeau, for some reason, doesn't want to use. And, it's something. It's something. And the Nets, the Nets are an all-star team. The last time we talked about, can the Nets beat the Lakers? And you said the Lakers would beat the Nets, and I'm going, you have 4 all-stars to 2 all-stars. But I don't know.
And I stand by that statement. I think the Lakers can beat the Nets in a 7-game series. But that's assuming the Nets even come out of the Eastern Conference Finals or the Eastern Conference in general. Because I think there are just so many dangerous teams in the East that could probably give the Nets a run for their money. One of them is Philadelphia. I think Philly can really give the Nets a hassle in a series. Don't forget about the Celtics. Don't forget about the Heat. Orlando, I think, can give the Nets trouble because of their three-point shooting. Indiana is another team that could give the Nets trouble, so I would not put it past them as far as what to do in a 7-game series.
And the Knicks, on paper, they have one of the best teams in the league.
Well, let's not go that far.
Well, no, think about it. I mean, if you put them on paper against anyone else...
They've got some good young players and a guy who has emerged as the go-to guy for them this season. But at the same time, this team has got a lot of holes.
We're talking about the Nets.
I'm talking about the Knicks.
I was talking about the Nets.
And I was talking about the Knicks.
But the Knicks, the Knicks...
The Nets have their holes, too. They don't have much height.
The Knicks have a lot of holes, but I don't... I would love to see them get Lonzo Ball because that way they can try to convince him to stay. Because like you said last time, what team... What all-star person wants to play for the New York Knicks? Even though they're doing okay now and they're looking that they're going upwards, but you haven't heard one NBA player that says, "I want to play for the Knicks."
And they're not going to say it.
And they're not going to say it, not yet anyway, unless they make it to the playoffs and get better players, I would assume. Because just like the Nets, I'm going to go by the Nets scenario. Look at the team, look at the players that they have, and look how many people want to go to play for them.
Mm-hmm.
Look how many teams want to play for them. I'm looking at what's his name? That the center that Cleveland doesn't want to play. Where do you think he's going to wind up? Because that's another one that the Knicks want.
It would have to be someplace that's dying to have a defensive center who can alter shots.
Do you have a team that they could probably fit well in mind? Because the Lakers want him. The Knicks want him. The Nets want him. there's a couple other teams that want. I think. Well, those are the teams that I know of that want him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Celtics too. You know. Oh, speaking of deals and trades and all that,
Right.
the Jets made a lot of signings.
The Jets or the Giants?
The Jets. The Jets had about four signings this week. They signed 4 players, and the Giants signed about 3. I know they signed one guy for 2 years. The Giants signed a guy for 3 years. And the Jets signed 3 players. They're scouting Jared Davis, Sheldon Rankings joined Jets after Robert Salem got him fired up. Okay. Where is one move every team should? Where are the players that they signed?
I'm looking at SB Nation.
Right.
As far as what the Jets have been doing.
Because, I said, I know that they signed 3 or 4 players.
Sheldon Rankins. That's one guy.
Right. Hey, what do you think about the Jets getting Joe Flacco?
What about Joe Flacco?
Jets free agent quarterback Joe Flacco to visit Eagles camp.
Well, that's just a visit. I mean, there's really nothing much that can be said or done about that.
Giants signed this Adrian Jackson. How can Jets Jug Douglas address the lingering cornerback need? But I know the Jets signed.
What the Giants did, that bears a lot of discussion because you mentioned Adoree Jackson, who was probably the prime cornerback that everybody was looking after. And the Giants wound up getting him.
The quarterback.
A cornerback.
Oh, cornerback. Okay, cornerback.
Yep,
right.
Adoree Jackson.
Right.
And then there was Kenny Golladay, who until recently was the top wide receiver, free agent wide receiver that was out there. And who did Golladay sign with? He signed with the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was one other guy.
Like I said, I know that they signed 3 players. One for 2 years, one for 3 years, and one for 1 year. And the Jets did the same thing. Like Sheldon Rankings, they signed for 2 years. The former Jets defensive tight end.
Right.
Tyler Croft.
Yep.
That's another one, the tight end. What do you think of all these people that the Giants and Jets have signed? What do you think of them?
Well, there's the one other guy that the Giants wound up getting was Reggie Ragland, who's a linebacker. He signed for 1 year. Oh, and also Kyle Rudolph, who they signed for tight end depth. Kyle Rudolph, formerly of the Vikings, the Giants signed him for tight end depth.
1 year deal?
1 year deal.
Right.
Correction, 2 year deal.
Oh, 2 year. All right. What do you think? What do you think of those?
I really like the Kyle Rudolph signing. Even though he's been around 10 years, he can give a breather to Evan Ingram every now and then. I really like the Kenny Galladay signing. He can be the number one receiver that the Giants have been looking for. They can team him with Sterling Shepard, and they could be a pretty decent duo for them. Adoree Jackson, I really like the Adoree Jackson signing because the Giants have needed help at cornerback for the longest time, and they finally got their man. Now, as far as the Jets are concerned, the only thing I can say, or better yet ask, about who the Jets signed is, who are these people? No, seriously, who are these people?
Well, they did come from different teams, like LaMarcus Joyner. The Jets signed him for $3 million cap hit.
$3 million cap hit. All of that money, and the best the Jets they can do is go after Sheldon Rankins. Let's say this about the Jets. At least the guys that they're looking after are young players. Rankins was drafted in 2016. Unfortunately, he's had problems with an Achilles injury for the last 2 years. So hopefully he'll be 100% and strong enough to help the Jets on the D-line. And then there is Tyler Kroft. Let me see if I can get a scouting report on Tyler Kroft.
The story behind Dan Philly's mullet.
Yeah.
But
here we are. Tyler Kroft. He's a former Bills tight end. And even though he has a low ceiling, he might be able to provide an upgrade at tight end, which is another area where the Jets have been very, very weak. Again, who are these people?
With all the names that are out there, and it's as if they're getting third-class players. They don't want to spend the money. They want to spread the wealth, and then they want to develop these kids instead of getting a name. And they're losing out on trading this guy here.
Mm-hmm.
They're losing out big time because a lot of teams are signing quarterbacks right now.
Yeah.
And they're going to get nothing for this guy if they want to trade him. And they're saying that they signed this wide receiver for Donald, that they used to know each other from their old college days.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying they're back together again. Well, they don't know if they're going to get traded. They don't know if they're going to trade. I don't know what the Jets have no. As I told you last week, where are the Jets going?
In the toilet.
Besides that, but there's no direction with them.
South.
South of the border.
Yeah. I wish I could add more to this, but we've got 45 seconds, so we got to wrap it up, sir.
All right, then. Take it away.
Hector, thank you.
Yes.
Kenny Graham on the other side of the glass, thank you. To all the people watching at home, thank you. We certainly hope that you can join us next week. For everyone here, I'm Jamie.
I'm Hector.
And in the words of the immortal John Minko, you have yourself a good evening.
Nighty-nighty.